Hello, I'm Morgan Peckma, and this is City and State TV. Today, our guest is Dottie Gallagher-Cohen. She's the president and CEO of the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership. Dottie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Just today, Forbes magazine named Buffalo the most affordable city in the nation. What does that distinction mean to the region?
Well, it's exciting, and it's something that we those of us who live here understand already, that this is a really affordable place to live with a lot of great amenities. So we definitely get our money's worth. One of the downsides of that is when we travel anywhere else, everywhere else seems so much more expensive than here. But we were excited to get the designation, and I think for the group of people we're trying to attract to the region, younger folks, it's especially impactful that they can have a great quality of life for a lot less money than elsewhere.
So attracting younger people to the region, to downtown, what are the other principal focuses that you have as president?
Well, in terms of the partnership, we're really trying to work very hard to represent the private sector and all of our public sector initiatives, but really right now to build the economy. That's what we're focused on, and we're very much aligned with the Regional Economic Development Council and plugging our members into things that are happening at the state level, because as you know, the governor's paying attention to Buffalo right now, and we're trying to sort of strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, and Andrew Rudnick, your predecessor, I mean, he was the longtime head of the organization. How do you feel like have you gone a different direction, or do you have a different style in leading the partnership?
Well, you know, Andrew was here from the beginning. He's the only president this organization has ever had, and he and I knew each other very well. And I was on the board here, and he was on my board, so I know his style. Our personalities are a little bit different, but I think the core of what this organization is and its mission won't change at all. Maybe the way we apply it will change. And one of the things that I believe is that people who are very close to our organization understand the value of what we do and really appreciate it and support us in a big way. But when you get 3 or 4 rings out, people say, hey, the partnership, what is it that they do exactly? So coming from a marketing and communication sort of background that's in my DNA, I think helping people understand the kind of work we do will actually get more support for us in the region. So outside the scope of sort of, the people who generally know we do a good job.
I mean, you spoke about the Buffalo Billion. We've heard a lot about the state's investment in the area. Have you seen private investment work in tandem with the government money that is coming into the region?
Well, it seems like the whole thing has been fortuitous. We actually did not get hit as hard in the recession as other places. For example, in our region, if the recession had hit Buffalo as hard as it had hit everywhere else in the country, we would have 7,000 fewer jobs here than we do right now. So we don't experience the high highs or the low lows. We kind of coast it. So right now, today, even before a lot of the Buffalo Billion implementation has happened, we actually have more jobs in Western New York than we've had from previously to the recession. So we are totally recovered and are out of that. So I think for us, the Buffalo Billion sort of comes at the exact right time when there's many good and large public sector projects happening and a lot of really good small creative class entrepreneurial things happening, and then bring the state's power to this to sort of accelerate things, and now we're really sort of cooking with gas. So those of us who have been working in Buffalo for a long time really feel the difference, and we're really excited to see what's happening. One of the most exciting things in some of the economic data that I've seen recently is that we are actually increasing our population of people between 20 and 34 years old, and for decades here we've been suffering what we've called a brain drain of our younger folks leaving the region. So this, we hope, is the beginning of sort of really a very bright future for this new diversified economy that we've been able to identify and are building on.
I mean, we've seen walking around Buffalo and driving around Erie County just manifest evidence of the fact that there is a boom here and that things are turning around, and yet the perception of Buffalo as a Rust Belt city, as a center of urban decay, how are you trying to combat that stigma, that perception of Buffalo?
Buffalo's got an incredibly negative brand. One of the great things about that is people who come here, their experience always exceeds their perception. So our product is better than our brand. And in Buffalo, unlike a lot of other places, you're sitting on a plane and you meet a guy and he says, I'm from Peoria. He says, well, tell me what I should know about Peoria. When we sit on a plane and we say we're from Buffalo, everyone thinks they know everything. Oh, it's snowing there all the time, it's chicken wings, blah, blah, blah. So we are sort of digging out of a hole in terms of brand. And Stories like the story in Forbes, and really I think getting some more funding for our tourism agency, which has been underfunded for over a decade, those are important steps. And these stories about what's happening here, sort of making it into the broader sort of business publications, will help us. But I've been saying for some time, I think the community's got to get serious about branding, and we really need to get to that, because I do think it's going to become a real barrier to enhance our growth. I hear from major employers consistently that one of their greatest challenges is getting executives to locate here. So it stops companies, or I should say restrains companies like Rich Products, Delaware North, people that have international footprints. To Buffalo is a tough sell for them to bring people here. It's nearly impossible to get those people to leave once they're here, which is great, but we understand it. It's an issue that we have to address.
And how many members does the partnership have?
About 1,000.
And have you noticed a shift in the makeup of the types of businesses that are within the partnership?
We have about a 95% retention rate of our membership. So people who invest in us, again, folks who are close to us and really understand the value, are happy to sort of be a part of it. They feel like they get really great ROI. But I do think that there's an opportunity for us to expand the number of companies that are associated with us, and we're working really hard to do that right now. But we have very loyal membership here.
Is there a certain type of business that you are really trying to draw into the area in order to improve economic development across the board?
Well, any business that has jobs is a business that's attractive to me. So private sector jobs, I should say. So, but we do have sort of target industry focus here. The medical campus and sort of the eds and meds piece is very, very strong in Buffalo. Advanced manufacturing is very big here, and manufacturing is sort of in our DNA here in Buffalo. And tourism, which is also a growing industry. So we've got sort of sectors that we're really focused on as growth opportunities. We also want to build a culture of entrepreneurship here, which is part of the Buffalo Billion Plan. Really work on smart growth and paying attention to workforce development, because we know we have a disconnect in terms of workforce development. So the community is really aligned around this plan about how we grow, and so far, at least the early indicators show that we're heading in the right direction.
To what degree does tourism in this region hinge upon the draw of Niagara Falls?
Well, I think Niagara Falls is a huge blessing, and can also be a curse, because it's a blessing because we have 8 million or so people that go into the Niagara Falls State Park. But the downside of that is, if you're not talking about the assets that are here in Buffalo, we're sort of missing that sort of urban cultural traveler that cities like Philadelphia and Boston, Baltimore are getting. And we have such a rich density of assets here that sometimes Niagara Falls overshadows that. One of the best modern art museums in the country. We've got, the terminus of the Erie Canal, the inaugural place of Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, there's some really significant in Darwin Martin House. We have 5 Frank Lloyd Wright properties here in the region, things that by themselves would be huge drivers of tourism. And I think it's easy to get sort of stuck on, well, let's promote Niagara Falls. And unfortunately, Niagara Falls as a destination is not nearly as strong as it can and will be someday. It's really an attraction now. So from my point of view, we need to do a better job of promoting the whole region so that we can really attract all different kinds of visitation. And that is growing, and it's growing fairly significantly.
The county executive was talking about the incredible collection of the library.
Yeah, the rare book collection. I mean, there are so many gems here. It's hard to. It's actually, I used to be the head of the tourism bureau before I took this job, and even I was astounded to learn the sort of depth of the attractions that we have here.
And what about your relationship with Canada? Are you actively seeking job and economic growth opportunities in conjunction with Ontario?
I have to say, I think our community has finally woken up to the opportunity that is Canada. And the QEW is like a main artery from Toronto into Buffalo. And if you look at a satellite image at night, it's actually a contiguous set of lights from Toronto to Buffalo, and black on either side of it till you get to Rochester and Cleveland. And so this incredibly unique geography we have is something we've never really focused on. And Toronto's economy is growing dramatically, and it's growing southward, by about 100,000 people a year. Already we feel an impact. About half the people using the Buffalo airport are Canadian. We get about $1 billion of shopping and related spending in our local economy from Canadians right now. And I think the B2B opportunities that exist, we've sort of, I would say for decades have been a little bit asleep at the switch here about the opportunity that exists across the border. So as an organization, the partnership is very focused on Can-Am. You may or may not know that the local Canadian consulate closed, I want to say a year ago, because the Canadian government is consolidating its offices, and the timing could not have been worse for our region, but we actually hired a person who worked for the consulate to really sort of help us stay in that business, and we are very active on advocacy issues that relate to the Peace Bridge, the Beyond the Border Agreement, free trade. We are, almost hyper-focused on Canada.
Yeah, we've obviously wrote a lot about the Peace Bridge dust-up. Are there some steps that the state can take to improve international commerce to the region?
Well, I think, a good export strategy is something that's been lacking for some time, and I know there's really an effort to advance it. That's sort of the next thing on the agenda, and we're anxious to sort of be a part of that. But, one of the challenges we have, and you report about it all the time, is, the excessive regulation taxation that exists here, which really is a barrier for people choosing New York. So anything that, we really feel like we need to sort of get underneath the systemic problems that make this really an attractive place to do any kind of business, never mind it just international business.
Dottie Gallagher-Cohen, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.